One debate where all the politicians just dance around the actual question itself. So I'm kind of hoping that we get people that are getting out at least to vote, and we get some kind of decision. I still think it's going to be a Liberal minority, so we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens in your crystal ball.
Yes,
is it crystal clear or is it cloudy?
It's murky as all get out.
Okay.
We're going mud catfishing.
Okay. Social media guru Garth Riley will be here monitoring social media reaction and taking your calls tonight. Garth.
Well, thanks, Deb. So here's the opportunity for you to vent your spleen and be able to say what you'd like to, and I don't have to use your name, so if you want to say something and say, don't put my name up, I'll do that. You could also call into the show tonight, which would be 1-888-ROGERS-8, or it's 764-3778. You can call in at any time. And Deb, just before I throw back to you, I asked some people earlier on who's going to win. Like, that's the question everybody's asking. Anyways, Alex said, I think we're going to be in for a big surprise. A lot of people are afraid of expressing who may be or who they did or did not vote for. They don't want to be lampooned on social media because it can be brutal. Paul Sharp, he goes to my meeting, he said Jack's will win, and someone said Cam Wilson said hopefully Canada will win. So we'll get more of those results and more comments coming in. You can get to me on Facebook, Garth Riley on Facebook, and also go to Twitter at Garth Riley, and we look forward to hearing from you throughout the night. Deb?
Okay, thanks so much, Garth. Now, as the results are made available, you will see your local numbers at the bottom of our screen, and we'll also be keeping an eye on the leaders' races as well. Now, we will have crews out in the community tonight, moving from west to east. Liberal Jennifer O'Connell is seeking re-election in Pickering-Uxbridge, while Liberal Mark Holland is hoping to serve for another term in Ajax. In Whitby, our own Brittany Christopoulos is there, one of the ridings to watch, as outgoing MP and former Liberal Selina Caesar-Chavannes is not seeking re-election after having a very public falling out with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Over to Brittany with more. Brittany?
Thank you, Deb. Whitby is definitely where all eyes are on them, as they're one of the most influential yet unpredictable areas or ridings in this area. The chance of a re-elect is completely off the table, as incumbent Selina Caesar-Chavannes is not running. I'm sure you remember earlier this year the infamous fallout with Justin Trudeau. That means the result is completely unknown at this time. However, predictions are a little unsure, but are definitely staying strong with the fact that the winner will be a tight race between Liberal newcomer Ryan Turnbull and Conservative Todd McCarthy. It's also no secret that Harper-era Finance Minister Jim Flaherty's legacy is still present even after 5 years after his passing. To continue on with his legacy, McCarthy continues to fight in the local elections to help restore that legacy as well. Liberals, however, are in for a tough fight tonight as they're hoping voters in Whitby continue to show their support despite the Liberal incumbents sitting currently as an independent. We'll have all that and more later tonight. Back to you in the studio, Deb.
All right, thank you, Brittany. In Oshawa, there is a Conservative incumbent. Colin Carey was first elected to the House of Commons in the 2004 federal election. Rita Nave is following the results there. Rita.
Thanks, Deborah. We're here at Colin Carey's campaign office, and some of his supporters are still here, but slowly they will be making their way to the party, and we will have reaction and local results a little bit later on. But in the meantime, Colin Carey is looking to be re-elected as MP for Oshawa. Tonight's biggest challengers for Colin Carey will be Afroza Hussain for the Liberal candidate. Shailene Penelou is the NDP candidate. Eric McKenzie is the People's Party of Canada candidate. Giovanna Ramsden is the Green Party of Canada candidate. And a point of interest, Oshawa is the only riding with a communist candidate on the ballot, Jeff Tomlinson. So all are looking to vie for the position of MP for Oshawa. But joining me right now is incumbent Colin Carey. And Colin, good to see you.
It's good to be seen, Rita.
Tell me how you're feeling right now.
Well, we're feeling confident. We're excited. I've got a great team here as a campaign team, well seasoned. Got a whole bunch of wonderful volunteers that are helping us to get the vote out, because right now, really, that's what it's all about.
You were out today. What was the reaction?
The reaction is good. It's solid. We're very confident about Oshawa, and a lot of excitement to see what happens countrywide.
Perfect. Well, good luck tonight. And as we mentioned, we will have local results coming up a little bit later on. But for now, Deborah, it's back to you.
All right, Rita, thank you very much. In Durham riding, Corey Manuel is our reporter, where another Conservative incumbent, Aaron O'Toole, is hoping to be returned to Parliament. Corey is outside a busy polling station. Corey, or what was a busy polling station.
Thank you, Deb. Now, as you mentioned, Aaron O'Toole is the current incumbent for the Durham riding, where he is going to be running for re-election here. Now, as you know, he's taken no chances today. He was campaigning right up until the polls closed this evening at 9 o'clock or 9:30. During the Harper administration, he was serving as the Minister for Veterans Affairs, and he also did vie for the Conservative leadership, believe it or not, where he came in third behind Maxime Bernier, who went on to create the People's Party, and also behind Andrew Scheer, who's the current Conservative Party leader. Now, the name O'Toole isn't too uncommon for this area. His father, John O'Toole, was the MPP for this riding, where he served from 1995 to 2014. Aaron O'Toole also served in the Canadian military for 12 years, where he actually received the Canadian Forces Decoration for his years of service. Running against O'Toole today is Jonathan Giancroce from the Liberal Party, Evan Price from the Green Party, Brenda Virtue from the People's Party, and Sarah Whalen-Wright from the NDP. Now, Deb will be watching the results closely as the numbers come in, and we'll be getting all the reactions tonight on Rogers TV. Back to you, Deb.
All right, Corey. Now, as Corey mentioned, Aaron O'Toole was campaigning right up until the 11th hour. We caught up with Aaron O'Toole earlier this afternoon. Aaron, last campaign was 78 days. This one, 41. What challenges has that given you in getting your message out?
Well, sometimes it seemed like this was longer than the last one because there's been a lot of back and forth on the national scene. This one, we're more organized. We certainly know people in the community even better because I've been MP now for over 6 years. So we were more organized hitting the ground. This one, it's meant we had to work faster. But we've knocked on more doors. We've visited more parts of the riding than ever before, so I'm very proud of our campaign.
And you tweeted out this weekend that you had covered every hamlet, every town within the riding. How did you do that?
Well, this year we had a secret weapon. It was called the mobile office. We had an RV that online social media named the Winnebago, as in win, the election. And we used that to go to every town and every hamlet. We made a pledge to visit all parts of Scugog, North Oshawa, and Clarington. So places like Columbus, places like Greenbank, places like Hayden that probably haven't ever seen a campaign. We were there. We sometimes did coffee with the candidate. We knocked on doors to show that all voices in Durham are very important to me. It's been well received. We get honks on the road, we get thumbs up, and it's fun driving a mobile office around.
Now, there may be some preconception that once Election Day rolls around, it's in the hands of the voters, but, you know, you're here knocking on doors and talking to people until, 9:29 p.m.
Yes.
Why?
Well, it's not just me. I also have a team of, about 80 people out and about across Durham today, talking to people that said they wanted to support me. They like the Conservatives. They like my work as MP. We're encouraging and reminding them to vote. I call it politely pestering to make sure they get out. We're also talking to undecided who we spoke to that said they had some questions and they were watching things, and we're back. So in some cases, we've knocked on doors 2 to 3 times. We've knocked on over 30,000 doors, Deb, and I'm very proud of the team we have. We've worked hard and we're trying to earn the trust of people once again.
Polls are still predicting a very tight race tonight. How are you feeling going into this?
We're confident that we've run an amazing campaign. You're right, the polls are tight. Certainly, I benefit from people know my record. They know I get things done. They've known me in that capacity as a minister, as a brand new person, someone whose father was involved provincially. So certainly people know my commitment to Durham. So I'm working harder than everyone else. And I'm hoping to have a good result tonight, but we're not going to stop until the last vote is cast.
You were at the Andrew Scheer rally on the weekend. Talk to me about the ambiance and that event.
There was a great excitement. I think it was his largest rally with 2,500 people in Richmond Hill. It was great for me to see some of my friends, the candidates, and some of the MPs running up there. We're very excited. It felt like a rally for the next Prime Minister of Canada, Andrew Scheer, and I hope that's the case. I can only help deliver Durham into the win column, But there was a really good vibe, and even though the polls were tight, a lot of people don't believe Justin Trudeau deserves to be re-elected. So you see Mr. Singh has come up, Mr. Scheer's outpolling even slightly the Liberals. A lot of people are disappointed in the Liberals, and so that, I think, will translate into a Conservative government.
Okay, we'll let you get back at it.
Thank you.
And finally, the communities of Orono and Newcastle are in the riding of Northumberland to Peterborough South, where Liberal incumbent Kim Rudd is hoping to be returned there. Now, joining Dawn and I on the desk tonight is Renee Soutens and Pat Perkins. Soutens served on Ajax Council before being elected to Parliament in 1988. Pat Perkins served on Whitby Council, both as a councillor and as its mayor before being elected MP. Thank you both for joining us here tonight.
My pleasure.
Let's
It's always
talk about
fun.
Yeah.
It's in the blood, you know.
It's always fun. It just never goes away. So can I ask you a question first, Pat? What do you think people are thinking of the leaders across the board this election? So are any of the leaders coming across like you can believe me and you can take what I say to the bank?
Well, I think that people are really confused by all kinds of aspects of this campaign. And with the leaders, I think that they thought they knew all of the leaders. But I think that when Jagmeet Singh came forward, they realized they didn't know him. And I think they were pleasantly surprised. I think he did a remarkable job in allowing people to get to know him. And I think most of the other leaders, because they had been there for so long, didn't have any uphill challenge in that regard, and he sure did, and he met the challenge. But with who they are, I don't think anybody really feels they know who they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I hear that a lot from people, actually, I know I do, that they wish that they knew
people
them.
just aren't connecting the way they
I don't believe they are.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe it's the method that people are using to connect nowadays. It's transitioning, and you've got people from all ends of the spectrum on this, people who use social media on an ongoing, regular basis, to those who don't use it at all. And that becomes extremely challenging for the campaigns themselves to make sure that they find out how to communicate to the people they need to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Renee, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's tough for all leaders. You know, the only leader that really has an advantage is the one who's been prime minister for 4 years, because every news article.
Some would argue with that.
Well, advantage, disadvantage, but people get to know who he is,
agreed.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
Where the other leaders, they're counting on that 10 or 15 second snippet during the campaign. And what can you learn in 15 seconds? And then when you put all the leaders together on a stage and have them share their opinions, well, those debates didn't do a lot, I don't think, for anybody. Yeah. And that's not the leader's fault, in my opinion. That's the structure of what was being presented to the public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, Deb, one of the things that worried me was, Renee referred to the debate on the national network. I thought it was poorly organized, and nobody really seemed to have a message that they had enough time to communicate. You watched it. I shouldn't be asking for your opinion, but I am kind of interested in your thoughts on that, being on the media side, as far as the actual national debate goes.
I just hear a lot of yelling, and I don't hear a lot of substance.
Yeah, okay.
You know, everybody has promises, but they don't tell me how they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And when I sit down to watch a debate, I want to hear substance. I don't want to hear you yelling at each other.
But you only have 15 seconds. And if you wait until it's your turn, the others will occupy the entire time frame. So you have to interject yourself. And that's not being negative to anybody. That's being positive to those who know how to use the debate structure. But the end result is nobody wins the debate structure.
And the problem with that is exactly the debate structure, because nobody likes to sit and watch people over-speaking one another and trying to be heard over somebody else.
It gets irritating.
It is. No. It is, and it's rude. It's truly rude, and people accept it as rude, and it doesn't bode well for anybody. And I think the structure is flawed.
I think the French language debate had a far better structure than the English language debate.
Yeah. Rude is how I would encapsulate this entire campaign, to be honest with you, in a single word. I've never seen mudslinging like that in my 60-some years, I was just appalled. I was appalled that I had turned into the cynic that my father used to be about the whole thing. It's true. I was just like, I can't believe we're paying these people good money to spend our tax dollars when they're up there fighting like a bunch of children. I mean, that's just kind of where I was with it.
But if the
I
structure
rest my
was
rant.
Yeah.
Well, you rest your rant. Okay. And on that rant, I'm going to throw it over now to Garth Riley. Garth, what are people saying on social media so far?
Well,
We're
thanks,
still
Deb.
waiting for our numbers.
Yeah, we're going to get those numbers in soon. But for those of you who are trying to get a hold of me, just go to Facebook and just Garth Riley on Facebook and send me some messages, or at Garth Riley on Twitter. But Diana has said something here. She said there's the feeling that no party leader spoke effectively about the issues concerning our aging population. Oh. And Chris Janusitis, we all know him and love him. He said that sheer terrifies him. And our good friend Ira, who's been involved in politics locally for a very long time, he says, the ones that do not have integrity lie and deceive. It's all a matter of guess which one might be the best. It's always a game of wait and see. Good comments. People want to hear from you today. Are we voting for something? Or are we voting against something? I mean, what do you say? Is 40 days enough to find the right leader? Is this a long enough time? Anyways, we want to hear your thoughts, and looking forward to more of that as the night continues. Back to you, Deb.
Okay, thanks, Garth. Good question. Is 40 days long enough? That's basically half of what we had in the last federal election.
Plenty long enough. Yeah. Plenty long enough. If I think that all the campaigns need not to respond to the media. If you look at some of those interviews that were taking place, they weren't interested in asking question about some earth-shaking policy. They were interested in asking some question, hopefully to trap or trip up the person they were asking. Mm-hmm. And I think that having 80 days of that instead of 40 days, 2,000 years ago, somebody accomplished a lot in 40 days and 40 nights. So, yeah.
But when you consider how long the U.S. elections are, they go on for
years.
Yeah, years.
And are they better served?
I don't think they ever stop. Yeah.
Excuse me.
In Mulroney's government, was it 80 days?
It was. I believe it was 58.
Okay.
And in that time, it was enough. It really was. And the disadvantage I had in those 58 days is that I was campaigning in all of Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby. Mm-hmm. So I had a massive riding.
It was called Ontario.
It was called Ontario riding, but
yeah.
I had twice the population of anybody else. So if you say, well, I need all these days to get to the doors, I needed more days than most other candidates, just because my riding was that much bigger. Yeah. It was plenty big enough.
Was it mudslinging time back then as it is today? Or
no,
do you think it was more focused on the issues?
Well, I ran in the free trade era,
okay.
And there was a lot of mud being thrown on around then, but I don't think it's to the degree that it is today.
But was it at the person, or was it at the issue?
Oh, I think in most cases it was around the issue, not the person.
The person,
yeah.
Okay.
When did that start to change?
Yeah. Pat, you ran 4 years ago now? 3 years ago?
2014 and then 2015.
Yeah, okay,
2014 was the by-election.
That's what happens when you move to Haliburton. You just lose track of time. That's how it is.
That's wonderful.
But when you were going
Haliburton.
door to door, did you find that people were connecting with you, or were they, I don't like that guy? Like, was it about the leader, or was it about the issue?
Yeah, there was some of each. I mean, I had support for me from the 17 years that I had been on council and the work that I had done. And so I had people supporting me for that. That there were people who said they didn't like the leader. People said they did. At that point in time, I think it was more me than it was the leadership. And I think people were still getting over the shock that Jim Flaherty was gone.
Yeah.
Like Jim was such a solid, dynamic leader in Whitby. And it was Whitby, Oshawa, and it was Whitby, Ajax, and the ridings changed back and forth. But Jim was an absolutely dynamic leader, and it was a great loss. Excuse me.
It was. Yeah, I wouldn't be, I don't think we'll see the like of him again. I was actually talking to somebody today about that, and we just don't see leaders like that anymore. I don't think. I would love to see them come back but
Yeah.
I'm not sure we will.
There are always leaders who rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
So you just need the occasion. And I'm sure that out of these 338 people that get elected tonight or tomorrow, whenever they finally declare the results, there will be some good quality people elected in that group.
Yeah.
Who will, on all parties, be able to rise to the occasion.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. You've restored my faith, right?
Well, maybe I'm naive, but
No. I think that, you know.
I do think that most people get into politics for all the right reasons.
Yes.
And they want to serve, they want to help. Sometimes the helping is not as easy as it sounds, because there are 337 other people who got elected, and they might have got elected on a viewpoint that's different than yours. And to me, that's where the public has a problem, because we might have to compromise our position to get the majority of those 338 on side, and that's not what they expect. They expect you to stand firm, and you get nothing.
Yeah.
I'm hearing Garth Riley wants to jump into the conversation here. Garth?
I'm kind of laughing as you talked about
Because I'm
this.
hearing,
Well, because as you're saying, and here's a response. Somebody said here, Robert said, if Trudeau went to jail for his crimes, it may be the first time he actually finished a sentence. The other person, Jeff, said, my thoughts are, no matter who gets in, we're all... use a tool.
Messed
up one way or another. Can't filter. And the other one is, Laurie Prentice said something here. My hope is that Ontario is smart enough to know that a vote for the Liberals is a vote to increase our deficit, increase our cost of living, illegal acts being brushed under the rug, sending our money to other countries before spending it on our own citizens. How can this even be a consideration? JT is a joke all over the world, but I guess that's okay too. It's very stressful night tonight. So there's some thoughts and views, and people are having an opportunity to vent their spleen. You can do it. Come on to the Facebook. Come on to Garth Riley. Go to my Facebook. Make comments all you want, or call us at 1-888-ROGERS-8, which is 764-3778. What's the matter? You don't want to use the phone anymore? Give us a call. We want to hear from you. All right, back to you, Deb.
okay, thank you, Garth.
So, Deborah, I'm just looking at some numbers here. These are numbers that are either leading or elected, and we have 71...
Across the country, right?
This is across the country, that's correct. So we have 71 leading Liberals, 44 Conservatives, 12 Bloc Québécois, 8 NDP, and 1 Green. So our polls have been closed here now for about 25 minutes, I guess, so we will start skidding into the 9:05.
And here are the numbers. We're just starting to get our numbers.
See some now. Okay.
So you will see them at the bottom of the screen and now full screen as they come in. Garth, while we're showing you the numbers, Garth, one of the I guess the posts that Garth was reading, alluded to the scandals.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to be as nonpartisan as possible when I throw this out there. If there is all those scandals, does it not matter? Like, are people, Justin Trudeau has been described to me as Teflon. Somebody said he is Teflon. Yeah. Everything that happens to this man, if it is negative, just
slides off.
Slides off. And if it was anybody else, their career would be over. Except
the fact that Scheer took him on was a negative for Scheer. How can you be accusing our Prime Minister of being, a criminal or a crook or you broke the law? That's deemed to be a negative on the part of Scheer, when in fact, as the Prime Minister, clearly there's lots of evidence that said he broke the law. Independent.
Jody Wilson-Raybould sure said there was.
Well, yeah, there's lots of evidence there, and Jody Wilson-Raybould certainly is knowledgeable about the law, but when the RCMP are not allowed to investigate, that says something. When the Conflict of Interest Commissioner says that he was wrong, the Ethics Commissioner says he was. These are all independent people.
But clearly, voters are saying. It doesn't matter.
Well, that's not true. That's not true.
Oh, Garth is jumping in
That's
again.
not true.
Why, Garth?
Hi guys, that's not true. We're saying people are saying, like, I can't believe how many people are willing to elect a criminal. So sad. Somebody said, another person here said, Trudeau is bad news. Definitely, if we re-elect them, I'm genuinely concerned for the future of our country and my family. They are not agreeing. They are saying this guy is basically a criminal. So, and it looks like the criminals are winning. Look at the numbers as they're coming in here. Doesn't seem that anybody seems to care. A couple people here, but a lot of people, don't take their time to do the vote. Hey, you haven't called us at all tonight. What's the matter? You don't have an opinion. You want to? We don't have to use your name. Call up and just vent your spleen. We want to hear about it. It's election night. It's next to Halloween. 2 scariest nights in the world. All right, here we go. Back to you, Deb.
Okay, Garth, thanks so much. Here are preliminary numbers coming in
Look at that.
from Ajax now. That's only 2 polls out of 219.
Like that.
But it shows Conservative Tom Dingwall with a small lead
Hardworking
there.
man.
So lots of vote counting still to happen
NDP's only
in
got one
Ajax.
vote.
Yeah,
He's got a
and
long way to
we
go.
I've just got some updated numbers here, Deborah, as well. So we now have we are moving from east to west, so we're starting to roll into the 905 now. We have the Liberals leading or elected in 80 seats, the Conservatives 50. That's up quite a bit.
That's up substantially, is it
Yeah,
not?
it was.
Don?
That's right. Yeah. The Bloc Quebec, they're sitting at 13 seats. I think they had predicted they were going to win about 40 seats. The NDP is up to 10. The Green are still sitting at 1. So I'd ask a question about the Bloc Quebecois, Renee, and I'll direct it to you for starters. I don't understand how you can have a party that has a base in a single province.
Isn't that ridiculous?
How does that work?
I don't want to necessarily pick on the Bloc.
No.
Was the Greens any better?
Well, I know the Greens have candidates across the country. The Bloc do not.
For 2 terms they've been in Parliament representing the Green Party with 1 seat. It's our system, and like it or not, people have the right to vote, and I would never want to change that for whoever they want. As much as I might not agree with some of the people they're voting for, that's democracy. And the worst of it is that if you take that scenario, let's assume we end up in a minority government. It's the way people are talking. Which one of those other 4 parties is going to get their way?
Well,
and what is it that they're going to get their way over? It's somebody's going to have to compromise, and whether it's in the province of Quebec, they want to build that link across the St. Lawrence to Quebec City. That's several $1 billion. That's going to be shall we say, a bribe to somebody to get that done, and the same will happen in Ontario, and the same will happen in Western Canada.
I guess I get concerned about the dialogue that the leader of the Bloc has. I mean, he's not the least bit shy about saying that, we want to make Quebec a sovereign, country, not a province. I mean, this whole separatist thing, I think, is starting to rear its head again. I think it's starting to get a little bit of traction again. And I mean, I think they had 4 seats. I'm not even sure they had party status last time, but something has fired them up. And it's going to be interesting to see.
What do you think that is?
You know what, Deborah? We talked a little bit before the show started, and I think the country has, not just Quebec, but I think many people in the country are all about what can you do for me, not what can I do to build this country. Like, it's flipped around. I go back to John F. Kennedy when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." And we've moved that way. And people seem to have forgotten that whenever they get something, somebody's in their back or side pocket. They don't realize that it's tax dollars that pay for all this, and that it's got to stop at some point. I'm amazed at the number of people that can't tell me the difference between a deficit and a debt. They go, well, the government owes money, and it's just like, no, not really. In Ontario, we are looking at the interest expense, which is the money borrowed to make up the deficit. The shortfall is the 3rd largest expense in the province after education and healthcare. And we're going to be like that, I think, nationally at some point in time. And if money gets expensive, we're really going to be, you want to see guts, you don't have to elect Scheer. Somebody's going to have to bite the bullet and say, here it is. Welcome back, Ray Days.
Deficits are simply future tax increases.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's got to come from somewhere. You borrow it today, you're going to pay it back tomorrow.
But it's just like we've all turned into people that live on credit, and it's okay for the country to do it too. So, Pat, you're pretty quiet. What do you think?
I mean, I even saw that when I was mayor, because one of the things that I was really determined to do was to get rid of the debt for the town of Whitby.
And you and I talked about that.
And we did it. We got rid of the debt. But then what people wanted us to do was just, well, we have the money. Councillors, we're not talking the public. Councillors said, well, we got no debt, so now we can go spend. And it's like, no, you don't understand. This is a situation where we have to put the projects forward, and we have to plan for the future and plan for the use of that money that we have. And you don't just go out and spend it willy-nilly on this, that, and every little thing that you want for your riding or your constituents. And the political, I mean, you herd the cats and you get things going that way. But when you've got the political arm actually going out and buying the votes for the public, are we not creating a culture of which party's going to offer me more? Yeah. Is that not going to be the carrot that's out there to get the votes now? It's a trend that I think is a dangerous one, because now you're going to have politicians out there promising things just for the vote, and can we ultimately afford what it is they're promising us? If they can bring a costed plan forward that shows how it's going to be paid for, then I think we can start having the conversation. But nobody's interested in the conversation, because all they're interested in is the soundbite for what they're going to get.
Yeah, what can you do for me?
What are you going to do for me today? What have you done for me lately? And we got to be very careful about how we see this thing move forward, because we cannot afford as a country just to go and blow money for everybody. We haven't got bottomless pockets to pay for it. Who's going to pay for it? Our children? Our grandchildren, and we're going to be in debt for a very long time.
Yeah. And money is cheap right now. Money's cheaper than it's ever been in history. So.
And this is the scary prospect of this devil-may-care attitude that's out there. Well, we'll just give $100 million to this country and that country. We're spending our money all over the world and not looking after our own. That's frightening too.
Okay, let's take a look at the numbers. We've got some numbers coming in, starting with Pickering, Uxbridge. Okay, we don't have numbers for Pickering, Uxbridge. Let's just cycle through that. Okay, in Ajax again, nothing's really changed since the last time we looked at that.
Tong Dingwall is a newcomer, and Mark Collins the incumbent there, so that surprises me a little bit.
Okay, and in Whitby, there we go. With 5 out of 250, Ryan Turnbull, Liberal candidate, out to an early lead.
Let's take a look now at Oshawa.
We have
got a solid lead there so far.
Yep, solid.
That's only 5 out of 240 polls, though. So.
And let's go to Durham. Or we'll cycle through Oshawa again.
There you go. That's right.
Colin is building on his strength. He's really worked the riding very well, and the results show. Yeah. At least in the first group of polls.
Okay, and there you have Aaron O'Toole with an early lead.
5 polls.
5 out of 307 polls.
Yeah.
And I'm told our federal numbers will be coming up. After this, nothing yet from Northumberland, Peterborough South, which has Orono and Newcastle as part of that riding. Okay, so now we're going to the leaders' ridings. That, of course, the Bloc Québécois leader leading in his. Nothing yet from Burnaby South, which is.
Well, of course, their polls aren't closed yet.
Yeah, they're still open out there.
So their polls close at 7 p.m. their time, which is 10 o'clock our time.
Which
Correct?
is actually, they've closed for
So
5
they've
minutes.
just closed?
Yeah.
But there's nothing there.
No, and updates numbers on the board here. We've got Liberals sitting at 80 elected or leading. Conservatives have closed that gap considerably. Now they're sitting at 50 elected or leading. Bloc 13. We'll see if the Bloc gets that 40 seat that they had predicted, and the NDP is sitting at 10, and we still have Green at 1. So that's it's interesting how the Conservatives are. It'd be interesting to see where those polls are in the 905, because everybody has talked about the 905 sort of making the election. Like if you win the 905, you pretty much got the election. I think there's 13 million people live in Ontario now, something like that. It's up there pretty good. It's about a third of the population of the country, so it's pretty profound. So
Now, the voter turnout at the advanced polls was up considerably. What was it, like 29%? What does that usually tell us? When
It was a great weekend to go and vote. That's all it tells you. Like, it was 4 days on a long weekend. You couldn't, you know, talk about convenience of voting. It was great, you know, and I voted at the advanced poll because it was so convenient. No lineups, and I don't know if it tells you any more than that. But,
it's interesting because I'm always interested in looking at the voter apathy after the election. How many people really got off their high horse and voted? That's the thing that worries me. I don't know, Pat, if we see that a lot in municipal elections, correct? Right. You know, you just don't get people coming out to vote for the mayor or the councillors. It's down usually, 20-25% if you're lucky.
Yes.
But, you know, if people realize the kind of tax dollars that are at stake here being spent in the billions, I wish there was like a voter 101 that people could take and say, okay, you're going to vote about your single largest expense, which is your income tax, which it is for most of us, is your income tax that you're paying. So learn about these guys, and gals, learn about where your money is going to go and make a smart decision. But I think you hit on it earlier on. People just look at sound bites. And that's it. They just go, okay, I hear this little bit, so that's fine, I'm good to go. Nobody would buy a car like that. I like the color. Okay, I'm in. But that's how people do it. It's insane to me how people, I shouldn't say that 100%, because I've got a buddy up there that he's got all his newspaper clippings, and I mean, he's retired, so he's got time to do the research and so on and so forth. But it's just, this has got to be the hardest election to make a decision on I can personally ever remember, because I don't think there's been any substance at all. Like, it's all he said, she said, and it's just, and I'm like, oh my God, will somebody, present the plan? And Renee, I'll ask you this: why do you think that Scheer presented their plan so late?
I don't think he presented it late. He presented an issue a day. The problem is, if you give 40 issues on day one, you have nothing to talk about for the next 40 days. And so they took the approach of an issue a day. We have a message to deliver that day on that subject. The problem is that you only heard 2 of the 38.
But there was a day, there was there not, where they actually said, here's our plan.
When they introduced the costed plan, which was about a week in advance. And so all the information at that point was there. If they had done it the other way around, said, here's our 40 days of what we're going to talk about, press wouldn't have been asking. And so they managed to get the press. They used the media to their advantage where they could. When Mr. Scheer was in Whitby, what was the subject matter? Disability tax credits. Whitby's a good place to bring that. There's quite an investment sitting in Whitby on that matter. So, and I think the other parties tried to do the same thing as best they could. And you're politically active. Did you read the final plan? From any of them?
No, honestly I didn't. I was trying to get bits and pieces of it, but I went to, the last time in the election, I went to Colin Carey's site looking for the plan, but it wasn't what I would consider a plan. It was, here's what we'd like to do. So, anyways, I think we have Dan McTagg on the phone.
We have Dan McTagg on the phone.
Okay.
Dan, of course, the former MP out Pickering Way. Dan, welcome. to the show.
Good to be here. Wow, nice to be able to sit back and watch these things with my feet up, not sore or going through all the excitement.
Yeah.
So we have an early lead from the Liberal Party. What's your prediction?
I thought it was going to be close, between 10 seats between the Conservatives and the Liberals nationally. And I still think, of course, with British Columbia not coming in yet, and we haven't really seen the avalanche coming from Western Canada, we might see things even up a little bit. I think I saw declarations of a Liberal win, but what that means, I don't know. I happen to probably be the first generation post the infamous Ontario riding debacle of 1972, in which Norm Catholic bested the Conservative candidate by a mere 8 votes. And, of course, the joke at the time was that if he had shook 4 more hands, the Liberals probably would have lost the government. Just so for those who may not remember, in 72, the Trudeau Liberals, that is the pure Elliott Trudeau Liberals, had 108 seats, the Conservatives 106. And, of course, had those 8 votes gone the other way, or at least 4 of them, we might have wound up with a very interesting parliament. I'm not sure we'll see that tonight, but I think the numbers will probably get a lot closer. I think for the Conservatives, the victory would be, do they pass the 95 seats they currently have? And for the Liberals, do they hang on to dear life in this election? And it appears that they've done that. But, of course, who's now going to form the alliance, the coalition? Will it be the NDP? Will it be the Bloc? Because, of course, it would appear we're heading towards, and this may be early hours, towards a hung parliament.
Okay, let me ask you this, Dan. You've been a Liberal for many years. Is it 38 years? Like a
lot of years.
A long time. You've tweeted out. You said your concern as a Liberal of many years is that this party, meaning the Liberals, is setting Canada and Canadians on a collision course with financial ruin and a constitutional crisis. Why do you say that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors to take into consideration. The Liberal Party has taken a hard shift to the left. It's no longer the party of the center. Now, of course, some will argue and say that that's really an issue of, how politics and public has evolved. I don't think so. Since the 2011 debacle, in which I lost my seat, many others as well, the Liberal Party moved to the far left and, of course, had its leader embrace some pretty radical social and economic programs. But probably the most important one in all of this is, in fact, the future deconstruction or perhaps lack of permission of any pipelines to be built in this country. And as someone who has spent a considerable amount of time on the energy file, we're not just talking about an economic consequence for the country as we shut down pipelines. It's pretty clear that he's sent candidates in. He's got Mr. Guilbeault elected this evening. These are hard environmentalists whose view of the world is that we should shut down the oil industry altogether, the natural gas industry altogether. These are wonderful ideas, and they would work great in a environment where reality has nothing to do with what you'd like to try to achieve. But for many of us, recognizing the significance of the oil and gas industry, more importantly, its work throughout the entire economy and how we use it in our everyday life, I think is likely to set us up for not just an economic problem down the road, which we're starting to see now. Governments incurring massive debts and deficits. There's been a lot of promises made in this campaign by the Liberals, by the NDP, which frankly are going to probably push us towards a level of unaffordability. But beyond that, I think the constitutional crisis comes when Alberta wakes up and realizes that there are no more pipelines to get its oil to market. And out of frustration, it's likely to hit back 2 ways. One, equalization. We'll have a referendum on equalization saying provinces like Quebec that cash in the big checks from our energy while at the same time blocking our pipelines is a little hypocritical. And so for that reason, I think Alberta is going to be on a collision course with the Federation. Quebec, of course, with Blanchette winning as many seats as he's likely to win tonight, could also see that happen as well. But I think we're also looking at the reality. I think for many, Western Canada is obviously going to be left out, unless, of course, there's some way in which this minority government can work to turn that around. I just don't see it if the Bloc, NDP, Liberals, and Greens make up the bulk of Parliament.
You've also said that you've spoken to 9 ex-Liberal MPs, not a single one lifting a finger for Trudeau. You say 3 were actually working for the Conservatives, 1 for the NDP, 1 going for Green. the Liberals under Trudeau are still getting the vote. How are they managing to still resonate with the public?
That's a good question. I mean, I would have to look at the overall votes this evening in terms of popularity. I think the Liberals will be down from where they were in 2015, but there's not much doubt in my mind, certainly as somebody who spends a considerable amount of time with the media, that there has been perhaps a reluctance by many to go the full distance with some of the policies that are out there. And I got to tell you that the media is very different. That's not a reflection here on you. But when you have a CBC, for instance, which receives billions of dollars from the taxpayer, when you have many media corporations that receive $600 million, it seems to me they're not likely to bite the hand that feeds them. And so real transparency on this election, I think, what was certainly wanting. And you have, of course, while you may say, well, some folks are more biased than the others, and that's in every aspect of this world, media isn't what it was 10, 20 years ago. So we've seen the proliferation, of course, of new technology, social media, that kind of thing, of course, has had a lot to do with how I think people have reacted. But, perhaps there was some success in suggesting, as they have done here, we'll have to wait and see in Ontario, that blaming, the Ford government may have certainly been a bit of a drawback for the Conservatives, while at the same time, the Liberals here may want to declare victory, but they're into a minority government. And the pitfall for the Liberals isn't so much what people vote or how they don't vote or whatever the result should be. It's that you have the SNC scandal that's coming up, and this time the Liberals will not have the numbers on committee to be able to block a full, transparent review of what happened. And of course, in my time, we had the Gomery inquiry over the scandal, the sponsorship scandal. That dealt with low-level officials within the bureaucracy that did not deal directly with the Prime Minister. So maybe Canadians want to give a pass. Maybe Canadians are just a bunch of nice people. But at the end of the day, this is coming right back, and we'll have to deal with this probably in about a year. I predict we're going to be into another federal election within the next 14 to 18 months.
Do you think that the voting public then will make the Liberals pay that time?
I'm not sure. I mean, look, people aren't in the habit of throwing governments out after one term. I mean, it's not done very often. I think there's a Canadian sense of, give them a chance. But I got to tell you, if the cat has 9 lives, Justin Trudeau used up all 9 in a very short period of time. There isn't really much left. And of course, now with a much stronger minority government, with fewer Liberal members, he's going to have a tough go of it. And he has got to be on his mark. He's got to be on his game. And I don't think that this story is quite finished yet at this time in the evening. I think there's still a lot to be said. This election could be a lot closer. I haven't looked at the numbers. Last I saw before you called was that the Liberals were at something like 120. The Conservatives were pushing in at about 100. That suggests to me that this could be a lot closer. The Liberals enjoyed a near 85-seat plurality over their next rival, the Conservatives. They're not going to see anything like that. And so, when you look as a member of Parliament, I've been through the odd minority government, served in Parliament and as Privy Councillor during the Paul Martin period. It really is daunting when you suddenly see that a good number of the colleagues you went to and you worked with over the past few years are no longer there, and the opposition has a much larger number. And we'll remember from 2004, 2006, 8, and 11, step by step, our numbers eroded. And, of course, we'll see if this means the leader can hang in there. I mean, I don't see Trudeau resigning, but I do see RCMP investigations, SNC Lavalin, the Mark Norman affair, and, of course, the affairs of the state, the country. Many of the things that have been raised about ethical breaches, the likes of which I've never seen in any prime minister in my time, Liberal or otherwise. If Canadians are giving a pass to this, what will cause them to say no? And I think the next time around could be very soon and far sooner than most of us believe.
Okay. Dan McTagg, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Pleasure being here. Have a great evening. Enjoy the results. The night is still young.
You too, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Deborah, we're just looking at the numbers here. We are leading and elected Liberals 138, Conservatives 105, Bloc 31. They're edging up to that 40-seat number. We have 19 NDP elected now, and we're still sitting at 1 Green. That's looking. It'll be interesting what the votes are out west. Just changed. It's 141 to 104 now. So the Liberals are leading far stronger than I thought they would. So I'm thinking
But you're only just entering the counts in Western Canada.
Agreed. But
all their wins are in Ontario, Quebec, and East.
But there's only 42 seats to come though.
Well, it's.
So I mean,
how many of them are they going to get?
Well, that's going to be interesting to see. Yeah. That's fascinating.
I was just going to ask that as you're reading out all these results, how many parties are we talking about here? Are there too many parties in the Canadian electoral system?
Well, I guess
we discussed that before we went to air.
Okay, to Renee's point, it's a free country, and if you want to start a party and you want to run on the ballot, I think that's a great thing. But personally, I really wish there was, honestly, 2 or 3. It would clean things up a lot more than it is. I guess the problem is once you start moving left or right, I think you start into what I would call the special interest group, like the Green, which is all about trying to save the environment, hugging trees, and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, but they're much more than that now, Don.
Well, I'm not sure they are at the root, but that's just my own personal opinion.
Just think about the current result. Now extrapolate that into a government that is based on the new concept, which has nothing to do with first past the post, but proportional representation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The discussion we're having tonight, you would be having every night.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And I think that is the last thing that Canada wants to do. And there's so many examples around the world of governments that run with proportional representation that can't function.
Yeah.
That for better or for worse, our system functions.
They're constantly having elections.
Well,
those
the Italians are
yes,
at it.
exactly.
The Israelis right now, they're having trouble negotiating.
Yeah.
I mean, just look around the world for places that have proportional representation.
I see us sliding down a slippery slope here, though. I mean, as long as I've been around, there's been at least 3 parties, and that's it used to be the Progressive Conservatives. I used to love that name. It's like hurry up and wait. And then you've got the Liberals, and then you had the NDP. I mean, I remember the NDP, the Stephen Lewis days in Ontario, and the Ed Broadbent days. That kind of goes back to when I'm. And everybody has their pluses, and if it wasn't for the NDP, at times we probably wouldn't have the kind of health care we have and whatnot. But it's trying to find this whole balance thing now about. Like I remember a day when the Liberals actually balanced the budget, and they were trying to kill some deficit off, and it's like, okay, that's great. And I remember the Conservatives trying to do the same thing. I just wish they would get their act together, and if we're going to buy fighter planes, let's get it done. And if we're going to, there's been a lot of bashing from people about Justin Trudeau's comment about the Canadian not the Canadian Armed Forces, rather the veterans, and about, we don't have enough to go for you. But everybody flips over the fact that the Conservatives froze Canadian Armed Forces wage package for 5 years. So, everybody's trying to save somewhere. It's just how it flies. So Pat, what are you thinking of those results? The 145, does that surprise you? I know we're not out west, but
it does in a way. But
we have 37
But let's go back
seats
to the
left.
Bloc conversation that we had. Mm-hmm. If we look at that, the Bloc are sitting with 31. Mm-hmm. Now, in all honesty, they are not a federal party. They're a party for the province of Quebec federally, but they're not a federal party that's going to embrace all provinces, and it's not their goal to embrace all provinces. So having a federal party in one province is certainly a problem. It's not allowing the vote to go to people that are going to be governing the country.
It's not a vote for Canada.
It's not a vote for Canada.
No.
It's only a vote for Quebec. That's problematic when you're sitting there with 31 already elected. And so you're showing 150 for the Liberals and 101 for Conservatives, 20 for NDP. That 31, now 32, can make a significant difference in the final analysis.
And that probably came at the cost of the Liberals.
It could have. It may have.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Yeah.
And when the NDP, I don't know, I'm not just sure how many seats the NDP had last election. They're sitting at 20 now. they're liable to pick some up out in the west, I think, like out in BC.
They won't get much in the prairies.
No, they won't. The prairie will, I suspect, will be, once we get into Alberta, certainly will be PC. There's no question about that. Yeah, conservative.
Okay.
Just C now, not PC.
Okay, Don, I'm going to hold you there.
Okay.
Brittany Christopoulos is standing by. She is with the president of the Liberal Riding Association in Whitby. She is at Ryan Turnbull's party tonight. And let's throw it over to Brittany. Brittany, go ahead.
You're 2 away from 170. So you can start.
Thanks, Deb. I'm here with Tom Wall, the current liberal president of the Liberal Association in Whitby. So what does this potentially mean for Whitby to have a potential minority Liberal government?
This is a fantastic news for Canada. When you look at a positive message that's been portrayed by the Prime Minister in terms of fighting climate change, great jobs numbers, people took a look at both of the main parties and saw Republican-style attacks and smears versus a positive vision that folks can get behind. And that's where we are now. And I'm so glad, so heartened by Canadians that they chose this vision for Canada.
And what does this mean for Ryan tonight while things are still going on?
Ryan is a once-in-a-generation candidate. Ryan is just a phenomenal person, a phenomenal individual, and a family man. It's a real privilege to know him, and I think the people of Whitby are lucky to have Ryan as a potential representative.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll be back with more. Back to you in the studio.
All right, our thanks to Brittany Christopoulos, our reporter in Whitby, where the Liberal candidate so far is leading.
Interesting. It's I was before Dan McTeague got away, I was going to ask him about what his thoughts were on the Liberal Party buying the pipeline out west. And do you think that was a good move, Renee, to buy the pipeline?
We need the pipeline, and if that's the only way we're going to get it, it was a good move.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's the only way we could have got it. A little bit of leadership might have been helpful on the matter.
Yeah. But then they might have called him on the carpet saying he was interfering, right? That's entirely possible.
No,
too.
that's what governments are about, isn't it?
Well, I think they are personally. I think sometimes you got to wield a big stick. And honestly, I think that the SNC-Lavalin issue, where he was trying to go with it, I think he was trying to save jobs in Quebec and try and get those jobs so that they kept the votes. But in the end, it kind of backfired on him. And I'm sure if we look back in history, there's been a little bit of that backroom dealing going on. Maybe you just don't go about it by throwing down landmines and standing on them, but that's kind of what happened.
Well, you don't take on people that have more principle than you do.
Well, that's true.
That's the thing.
That is true.
She had a lot of principle.
I'm going to hold it there, and I'm going to throw it over to Garth Riley, our social media guy. What are people saying out there?
Well,
Garth?
I had to ask some questions because people weren't really responding. So I asked a question: is this country doomed? And somebody threw doomed. I figured, I need a little sensationalism here to get things rolling. Some people said no, they still had some hope, and then there were some people that said that it will be if we elect the wrong leader. One person said something interesting. Chris said he voted for the party that holds most of my values. And again, voting for the party, not for the person. Now, he says, doomed, not yet, but a shift in the big three is what the country needs. In his opinion, he says, Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP have been nothing but a disappointment and are, for themselves, it seems. It'll be nice to see a few more seats for the Green and the people in the election, fingers crossed. And then another person, Susanna Porter, says, and she's a real estate agent, which I know, she said, they say in housing that we have a missing middle. I say in politics we also have a missing middle. And she goes on to say, I think that's why the country is so divided. So I'd like to ask the panel, what do you guys think about Susanna's point here? Do we have a missing middle?
Yes.
What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Well, how can we fix it?
Electing a conservative government.
Exactly.
There was a lot of things in that conservative platform that were really in the middle. Take the healthcare issue. We're the only ones that talked about giving money to the provinces for MRI machines. That's not a federal jurisdiction, but the federal government has the resources to do so. So there's a lot of issues where the Conservatives were moving to the middle. The problem is that there's those conservatives on the fringes who are really upset that we're moving to the middle because they would prefer that we balance the budget in 1 year.
Right.
We said 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and that 1 year is impossible. 2 years is impossible.
And I think that brings up the question that people mostly ask is, what can be done in a single term? Because you're always in between campaigning, and you all know that on the panel. Right now we have a caller from Oshawa, our first caller, so we're just going to go standing O. Mike from Oshawa, thanks for calling in. What do you have to say? We're going to get Mike. We're going to hear you in a second, Mike. Just hang on. The audio will be brought up in a moment. Mike, are you with us? Okay. When we get him back up, we'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to throw back over to the panel over there. But
can we talk a little bit more about the middle?
About the middle, I think so. I think
one
we
of
should
the
talk
big
about
things
it.
I heard was, I can't afford a house. Like I don't think the government can fix housing. I really don't. It's that, to me, that all the cattle have run out of the corral and you can close the door, but we've got, I heard a number the other day, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but 25% of the housing in Vancouver is tied up with Airbnb, which just blew my mind.
Yeah, the numbers are that high now.
Yeah, it's just insane. So unless you regulate that and you say, hey, you can't buy, you can't rent, but I mean, all the numbers are out of reach already.
Yeah.
So you can't take my tax dollars and say, you know what, we're going to buy, $30 trillion worth of housing.
But you could legislate.
But what can you legislate?
Well, I'm going to ask, what could we do?
There's a lot of things you can do to regulate the housing. Putting money into it isn't necessarily the answer.
Right.
Yes, government can build housing which is affordable for people who need those supports. But for most of us, what we need is reasonable financing, reasonable terms, and a supply that is sufficient to bring the marketplace down. In Durham, the house price, I was looking at one the other day thinking of an investment for somebody I know, and I was stunned. It was $1 million for a townhouse. A brand new townhouse, looked very nice.
$1 million.
$1 million, and I'm thinking, wow, and that's supply and demand.
But I want to ask the question here. You guys ran municipally, and Pat, you're the mayor. And here's the question: is that people pass bylaws? Don, we know this answer. Like we knew Seaton was coming. We knew all that stuff was happening. We were so far out of reach, and we've done nothing but we've allowed. Through legislation and through policy and bylaws, all of the plans have allowed for this mayhem.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
I've got a real different.
I take exception
the federal
as well.
government. Federal government had nothing to do with it. Municipal government had nothing to do with it. In Ontario, it was the McGuinty-Wynne government that messed up our housing. They froze all of our land to the point where developers themselves were screaming at the price of the land that they were going to be able to buy it for was going $1 million and then $2 million because they froze everything. That whole freezing until they got the Seaton land deal done, they froze everybody out. They drove all the prices in throughout all of Durham region through the roof. Didn't need to be that way. And then they did a dirty deal with the development industry to get them to front end the cost of the infrastructure and get the Seaton provincial lands going before anybody else's land. There was a whole lot of stuff there, and it was all engineered by the province of Ontario, and everybody is now paying the price in the home costs. It was dirty, it was nasty.
Keep in mind, the consumers are demanding these high prices. The $1 million units I was looking at are on 34-foot lots. They have 3 bathrooms.
Yeah.
They have granite kitchens. They have marble flooring. What is it you think you're going to get all this for $500,000? Not in your life.
Yeah. My first house was a little wartime house in Ajax.
Yeah,
but that house now is worth $500,000.
And I could not afford it now.
You could not afford it.
You've got Mike back on the line.
We have Mike.
Let's try it.
Mike, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Hey, Mike.
All right, Mike. Thanks for making it through. What are you, liberal?
Liberal? No, I'm not. I'm an NDP supporter.
All right, so go ahead. What do you like to say tonight?
Well, when I hear tonight about pricing people out of the housing industry, I don't think Pat Perkins understands at all an instance about how anybody actually tries to get in at the basic part. We have a homeless problem here in Oshawa in Durham region. No, we're not facilitating.
So is your comment are you a homeowner yourself?
Yes, I am a homeowner.
Okay. And how long have you been a homeowner?
Been a homeowner for the last 10 years.
All right. So the last 10 years you got in. Could you be a homeowner today in today's market as it is with what you entered the market with 10 years ago?
What's that supposed to mean, Garth?
So my question for you is, could you be a homeowner today if this was the market is today the way it is? Could you be a homeowner today if you're just entering now?
Sure. A lot of people are homeowners today.
No, but
that's not the problem today. No, it's not the problem today about owning a home. The problem we have, I can own a home. That's fantastic. I own a home. The problem I have today as an NDP supporter and as a voter in Canada is not about myself. It's about everybody around me. We need the affordable housing. That's what we need, Garth.
Okay. We just talked about it. It's a great point. Do you think the NDP has the answer?
Yes, we need to build more affordable housing, and their platform of building more affordable housing for everybody in Canada is a start. We have a huge need in the Durham region that needs to be met, and I hope, if we have a minority government with the NDP supporting whoever the Liberal, I hope, a minority government. If we support that, then we can support a housing policy that supports people, not homeowners like me, but people that want to get into the market and people that need to have affordable rent and other things like that. It's not about me owning a house. It's about people wanting to get into affordable housing and affordable places to live.
That's a fair comment. Mike, thanks very much for the call. I'm going to throw it back. Thank you very much. Back over to you, Deb.
Okay, we can see there from the numbers that we are calling it in Oshawa for Colin Carey.
Yeah, looks like he's elected there. I see a check mark, so I'm assuming that's what that means.
I think that's what that means, Don.
But
good for Colin.
It's only 60 out of 240 polls, though. Wow. That's crazy. Well, it's interesting going back to this whole housing thing. I'd like to just talk a little bit about that a little more. Garth, did you get a feeling that fella wanted rental housing built, or did he want?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think that's where he was going? Because I sure wouldn't be a fan of building houses with taxpayers' dollars and then selling them at a reduced cost. I mean, that just sounds like a recipe for financial disaster.
There's got to be a P3 kind of an opportunity here for the housing market. They talked about it in the September. September was a new part of the market. You're going to jump in, Pat. I see you have something to say.
We had one of those actually happened while I was mayor in Whitby, and it happened on Mary Street. Ended up being seniors housing, Mary Street between Garden and Brock, and it was good. But that started at the time when Jim Flaherty was still around, and getting the development industry to come in for that kind of money, it's pretty substantial. And having them wanting to do a 3P, I don't know how long it's going to take them to get their money back at today's land prices. I mean, that's the thing. They have to somehow make their money back. And if you're going in with controlled rents and all of those sort of things, I go back to that whole Kathleen Wynne fiasco. Driving the cost per acre of land up to the point that it went was the first brick in the road of
suicide
demise.
for her to actually to start to move in. Renee, I want to ask you this: political suicide for her to try and take over all the green space that surrounded Toronto. I mean,
was it suicide for her?
Yeah,
no,
would it have been
because
suicide?
she got reelected, but for the province, it put us into some massive debts because that was just an example of misguided direction. You know, the deficits that occurred under the Wynne government were so huge. You know, and land cost is part of it. But if you're borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, it all shows up.
But we're doing the same thing here. We're going to type out and see. By the way, you folks out there, do you think we're ever going to get out of this tailspin of us spending so much money that we can never recover? We need some better answers. You got an answer about how we can get out of debt, you need to call us at the show number. It's at the bottom of the screen, and we want to hear from you. So, and also on Facebook, you can get me at Garth Riley. Looking forward to hearing back from you. Deb, I'm going to throw it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. We are going to throw it over to Brittany, who is still at the Ryan Turnbull campaign, the Liberal candidate in Whitby riding. She's standing by with Whitby Councillor Elizabeth Roy. Brittany?
Thanks, Deb. I'm now here with Elizabeth Roy, the regional councillor for the town of Whitby. What could this mean for Whitby with Ryan representing them in Parliament potentially?
Well, the potential is that we can continue what we've had with Selena as well too, and having with the current government. And hopefully, as we're seeing the numbers coming in, that it is Ryan and it is Trudeau. It's continuation of the works that we have done at the regional level and at the town level. Selena helped us to get a lot of support in terms of one for our station gallery, for our housing initiatives, and that's something that we want to continue forward. We're seeing a lot of changes at the provincial level that are going to impact us, and this will hopefully give us a good help to go forward, especially with the Liberals being in power.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your night. I'm back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks so much to Brittany. As we look at the numbers, we're declaring Aaron O'Toole elected in Durham riding.
That's good. He was working hard, and actually, Aaron and I had a discussion a little while back, and I had it with Jamie Schmale who is my guy up in Halliburton, and we were both talking about leadership and whether or not Andrew Scheer was the right choice. And it was interesting. A couple of people said that Andrew Scheer, looks like Andrew Scheer got his seat.
He has been elected.
He's elected too. That's a good thing.
In his riding.
But I think that they would have done better. I think the Conservatives would have, with quite frankly, with Aaron O'Toole at the helm. I think Aaron's a very strong leader, and I have a lot of people tell me that share with me that Andrew Scheer was. He just doesn't have any charisma or strong drive or that. I don't know how you folks feel about that leader, but I was getting a lot of feedback on that up north, just that he just didn't have the fire. Pat, what do you think? Did he have the fire?
Well, the question is now too, if he's not delivering a government, do they start shopping for a new leader, or
I would think
does Andrew Scheer get another go?
Think about it. First time Harper ran as leader, he didn't do as well. Second time, he increased the vote. Got a lot more seats. Third time he formed the government.
Is the party willing to wait 3 elections?
I guess that you need to ask the party.
Exactly.
Let's wait till all the races are settled, and you know, if he comes up with 40 more seats than we had going in, you know, that's not a failure. Is it what we wanted? No, of course not. We wanted him to come in with 70 more seats, but you know,
well, it looks like
which is true, but I mean, Andrew is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He's a delightful person. I don't think the people got to know Andrew Scheer, and I don't know. The media we're all gushy about, you know, the guy's socks and somebody else, you know, whatever. They were going on about, you know, weird stuff instead of actually trying to get to know the leaders of the party. I don't think that gushing over Trudeau has done anybody any good in understanding these leaders. We need to understand them, and we need to get to know who they are. So.
Just in. Hang on a second. Big important. One of our crews got an answer. He's been on his phone for you as well.
He's handing me a phone.
Handing you a phone. Read this. Green Party.
Fredericton.
Yeah. Took the seat.
They took the seat. They gave it.
They did.
Wow.
We have their Liberal incumbent Mark Holland re-elected in Ajax. I guess we can't go back to Pickering, Uxbridge, huh, folks? Okay, I think they have to scroll through.
So
that's okay. Well,
but he
We're showing 145 elected or leading Liberals now, 119 Conservatives, 35 Bloc. Looks like they've come up 5 short from their predicted 40 they had. NDP at 23 though, and we have 2 at the Green Party now. So that's interesting. So it looks like my prediction might hold, that we might have a Liberal minority government. So there we go. Do I get a box of gloss sets or something like that?
Yes.
Hey, they're in the machine out there.
Yeah,
They're in
there.
the machine
I'll
out
get you one out.
We'll have to borrow the money to pay for it, because that's what these companies do.
Right. Hey, going back to housing just for a minute, I can't leave this housing thing alone. When I was in the United
Clearly
States,
not.
in Florida, I found out that in the United States you can deduct your interest, your mortgage interest off your income.
Exactly. Income
How would that
taxes.
work up here?
Well, they voted out a government that proposed it.
To
Joe Clark had that as part of the campaigin.
Is that right? Okay,
Yes,
I
mortgage
wasn't aware of that.
deductibility. Well, you're much younger, I guess.
Not a whole lot, but thanks, buddy. Go ahead.
I'm just going to stop you there
Yep.
because our cameras are at the Ryan Turnbull campaign, and apparently Ryan Turnbull has been elected.
I see a check mark.
He's not ready to speak. I was told he was, but we're going to go there in a few minutes as soon as they are ready for us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We had somebody make a comment here talking about the SNC Lavalin, just to maybe. One guy said, what law was broken? The ethics committee determined that no law was broken. Were guidelines not followed? Yes, but it's a big difference between that and breaking the law. In a response, Jonathan Weaver has said, we don't know if a law has been broken because the RCMP investigation has been quelled so far. And if he forms the government, there will be no RCMP investigation, which, taking party politics out of the equation, makes for a scary scenario. But anyone with a majority can tell the cops what to do and what not to investigate. Interesting perspective.
To that point, Garth, I was unaware that the federal government can actually overturn a court decision. Parliament can vote on a court decision and overturn it if they want to. I was quite shocked to find that out.
That's so we. Well, it probably was pushed through an omnibus bill, which nobody ever reads, and no one can possibly read. So I'd be interested to see what they rammed it through with something that was all juicy and had our hearts pulled on it. And then they slipped that one in, and unfortunately, we can thank Harper for the omnibus revolution that's happened. So one bad mark against the Conservatives. I'd have to
Get
say.
on the omnibus.
He wasn't the first.
He wasn't?
No, he wasn't the first. I can recall sitting in seats in Ottawa in the House of Commons where there were bills that had many things attached to them.
I guess we had a name for it, so we can actually call it as something too. Okay, all right, that's fair. That's your field, not mine. But thank you for that insight for sure. Back to you guys.
It's interesting, Deborah, that close to the 905, as we go farther west, the Liberals are.
You mean farther east?
Sorry, no, farther west.
Farther west.
Yeah.
So we've got Jennifer O'Connell and
Mark Holland.
Yeah, he's a Liberal. And then who's a Whitby candidate now?
Ryan Turnbull.
And was he elected?
Mm-hmm.
He was.
Yes.
Okay. So
what was his background?
The 2 Eastern.
Yeah, Ryan Turnbull background, you know?
He's some sort of an entrepreneur.
An entrepreneur. Cool. He's a business person.
All right.
He's a business person.
That would be kind of cool.
But then in Oshawa we have Colin Carey. In Durham we have Aaron O'Toole, and in Northumberland, Peterborough South, it looks like Philip Lawrence has taken it from Kim Rudd. Although we haven't officially elected Philip Lawrence yet.
Has anybody seen what's happened in Peterborough?
Because they are a good
supposedly
indicator,
a bellwether.
correct?
Yeah.
Well, I saw that Miriam Monsef was ahead. That's her writing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I saw that she was ahead.
Yeah. So we're now sitting at 148 Liberals leading or elected, 119 Conservatives, 35 Bloc. That will stay. 24 NDP though, and it looks like the Greens have picked up one more seat as well. So that is interesting.
So what does this minority government then mean going forward?
Big deficits, trade-offs, And that's what minority governments are. You know, you can't knock the process, but you know, the reality is the government of the day will want to govern, and they have to be respectful that some other parties had an opinion, and they get to use it.
Okay, looking in your crystal balls, how long is it going to last before voters are back at the polls again?
No more than a year and a half, in my opinion.
18 months.
Yeah, Demick Tag said a year, did he not? What about you, Renee?
I think it'll go much more than 2 years.
And I was too. I was thinking
You
too.
too?
Unless somebody, you know, they start making some backroom deals, it'll be interesting to see. I'll be interested to see how the bloc affects the government.
The bloc's in the driver's seat, and you know, the others could be close between them, but the bloc has got so many seats that if they decide they want something, and think about it, all three of those parties have said no pipeline. If they stand their ground and say no pipeline, what are the Liberals going to do?
Well, the bloc has said no pipeline, right? They don't want a pipeline going through there.
And the Green and the NDP. I mean, you know, there you go. So where do they stand? It's going to be difficult.
Well, we've only got 9 seats to go right across the country. That's all that's left to report.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop you there because we have a caller for Garth Riley.
Hey.
We have Mr. Rob MacArthur on the line.
Is he?
He is.
Rob, is that you?
Hey, that's me, Garth.
Rob, you're the founder of the Apathy Party, aren't you?
Yes. I haven't seen the statistics yet on how many people didn't vote, so I can't really give any opinion on that yet.
So tell us, what are your thoughts tonight, Rob?
Well, I mean, as expected, it was a minority government. I you know, sort of hoping majority, but I guess with the minority Liberal, at least you won't see the other parties looking to sort of get another election going. I would have rather seen the Conservatives in as the Liberals, but you know, the country has spoken, and that's democracy, so we'll have to see how it goes for the next 4 years.
Were you concerned at all, Rob, that there was going to be some kind of a coalition with what seemed to be the big push of the NDP and really people looking to all the fringe, including the well-timed climate change walk around? Were you concerned at all that there was possibly going to be a coalition?
Well, yeah, I was of the opinion that if the Conservatives had gotten the minority, then you know, it seems to be these days people, well, that's not the way I want it, so they pout and they do their best to get another election. And then with the NDP coming right out and saying they wouldn't support the Conservatives in any way, and that they would work with the Liberals, and if the other fringe parties do that, so they could certainly, I believe they'd be able to pass a non-confidence vote. Great.
Well, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
All righty, no problem, Garth.
So, what do you think of that? I mean, when they this whole idea that possibly are we not almost in that situation now? I mean, the way the power looks like it's going, that we almost have a coalition.
Well, maybe not in the formal sense, but in the informal sense, I'll vote for you if you give me X and the other.
How wrong is that? I mean, I remember
wrong.
Back in the days, and I've been around Pickering since '73. There was a lot of deals that were done in politics, and when it was kind of like you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and that was done for a very long time. And then politics got a little more heavy duty, and now it's under a microscope like never before. But how wrong is this idea of negotiating deals with each other to create a better outcome? Why?
It depends on the strength of the negotiations. You know, if you think about two of those parties, the NDP and the Green Party, if they got to implement their program, the Liberal deficits would look like they're paupers. And so, you know, it depends on how firm they are on their position. You heard Dan McTeague, a Liberal, call in and talk about, you know, the fact that the Liberal Party has forgotten about deficits and what they're all about. If they have to succumb to those two parties with their massive deficits, it's going to take some backbone, and I don't think that the current leader of the Liberal Party's got that.
Deb?
Thanks, Garth. We are just cycling through the leaders' numbers right now, waiting to get to Maxime Bernier's. We've just been told that he has lost his seat. There you go, to the Conservative. What do you guys make of that?
Well, two Maxime Berniers on the ballot certainly confused that.
I'm sure it didn't help it any, but I think that Maxine's policies for their riding didn't hold water. You know, the whole issue of marketing boards is very important to his constituents, and yet he was opposed to them. You know, there's a lot of individual things in the Bernier platform, balancing the budget in 2 years. I mean, I'm as fiscal conservative as you can probably find, and I'm a realist. Dan McD, a liberal, says it can't be done. You know, so Maxine saying we'll just cut the world until we get what we want, that doesn't work. And his constituents obviously didn't agree with him.
What do you think the future is of the People's Party of Canada? Is it done?
I hope so.
It very well could be.
I hope so. You know, it's. I don't think we need 6 political parties, and so that's one. I can probably think of a couple others that we could do without, and we'd be in great shape.
You know, Deborah, I'm looking at these numbers, and to Renee's point, I don't know who the Liberals could team up with to make this government really work. I mean, I'm sure the Bloc will, you know, they'll be putting their hand up saying, hey, we want this and we want that, but I don't know whether the Liberals will be able to do that or not. I don't have the data on the seats lost, but I'll bet you a good chunk of Liberal seats went to the Bloc. The NDP sitting at 24. We only have 5 seats to come, which would be BC, and their polls have been closed for about an hour now, I guess. I don't know how this will work, because the Conservatives will, you know, I mean, they're just diametrically opposed anymore, the two of them. And I'm kind of with you, Renee, that anything the NDP wants to institute is just, there's no money.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it might end up being status quo. So.
Did Ford have an effect on this election for the Conservatives, or how much of an effect?
In the soundbite world, I think the campaign against Ford that was put out by various parties and various labor groups were messaging directly to their members
and making a correlation between the two parties.
And they were doing it in sound bites, and people didn't really know what they were. They didn't know the substance of it, but they bought into the soundbite, in my opinion.
And a lot of people equate the C with cut.
Could be.
You
That's
know, I was seeing a lot of that on social media. So it looks like the Conservatives have picked up some seats out west. Renee, you're right. They're looking now at 152 leading or elected Liberals and 121 leading or elected for the Conservatives. And, there was just a minor adjustment there. NDP looks like they've lost a seat. They've dropped down to 23. They didn't lose a seat. I guess they were just projecting, and it didn't turn out well.
Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Garth. We've got another caller.
We have another caller and a voice
John.
and a voice that we've heard many times. I believe we have. Is it John Dolstra? So, John, it's a political show. We love hearing from you, John. What do you think of what's going on tonight?
Well, it's no surprise, Garth. You know, you and I talked about this in the past and a few weeks ago. And these are the numbers, basically, what I'm saying across the country. And I think we're pretty close to what you and I have discussed.
What do you figure this means for the future? How can it hold, or is it going to be an 18-month and we're back at it?
Well, I think that we give it 2 years, and we'll see what happens. I don't think that it'll last. My predictions of what I said to you here the other day of what's going to happen in Durham were pretty close.
Right.
Atlantic Canada is no surprise. The Conservatives have picked up some seats.
Yeah, but were you surprised that the Liberal, what they picked up, what the Liberals picked up?
No, I'm not surprised. The Liberals are pretty strong. They run quite a campaign. I thought Andrew Scheer's campaign was weak.
Yeah.
He could have done a lot better than what he did.
Yeah.
I think the difference here may be of what's going to happen with the Bloc in Quebec. I thought the Green would do a lot better, and they didn't. The NDP took quite a beating from what they had to where we are. There's no surprises here. I've seen this before.
So
I think we'll be back at the polls in 2 years or less.
I want to throw something by to you, John, and then even to Deb and to Don. I'd asked the question earlier in Facebook of was there any hope, and then someone asked me when I said, "Are we doomed?" Then it was Jason King that came back to me, and he said, "Well, start by defining what doomed is." And I said, "I mean, can we pull off an economic turnaround? Can we afford not to use oil?" His comment was, Jason says, "Garth Riley, I don't expect that we should suddenly stop using oil, and that we would stop using oil. Changes of that magnitude would take, for that to happen, take a long time. Economic turnaround. Well, that's not doom. It's a recession, and historically they are imminent, and then people emerge from them. I think this is a marvelous time to be alive, but no government will ever be able to solve all of the problems of a people who believe that the government can solve all of their problems." What does everybody have to say about that? I want to open up to Don and to Deb and John. But Don, what do you have to say about something like that?
I don't think the government can solve. I think the government can build a framework so that people can actually work within that framework and try and get ahead. I think 80%, 90% of Canadians, for the most part, they just want their health. They want a little bit of family time together, and they'd like to own a home. I think there's some pretty basic stuff, and then all the other stuff is sort of add on to that. So,
right.
But I don't think the government really has a handle. Like, they're trying to be so many things to so many people. It's gotten a bit dysfunctional. I really don't think
it's an unrealistic expectation.
Well, we get the basics right, and then take the rest of it on yourself. I think that's how it has to be. I don't know how this Liberal government will function. I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm trying to figure out who will work with who. And we haven't been great in the election campaign about being gentlemanly to each other and respectful. So I'm not sure where this is going to go. I really don't.
What do you think, John Dolstra? What do you think with what Don's just said?
Well, I agree somewhat, but the problem we've had in this election here is, I agree with Don. It's been a dirty election. I look at a lot of issues that there's nothing there for a lot of Canadian people. I don't care whether it's federal, provincial, or municipal. Don's right. You're not going to resolve all the issues, but there are some big issues out there that have not been touched on by the Liberals and the Conservatives or the NDP. One is to do with our pensions for retirees. The military. The list goes on some of the big issues. I was really disappointed when I heard Andrew Scheer say, well, we're going to get $425 per person. Well, if you break that down per day, it's less than 16 cents. You're not giving us anything, because at the end of the day, you're going to end up paying tax on it anyway. Right. And I've always said to a lot of these guys, and guys, I know a lot of these people, the only thing that's free in the world is the sun. It comes up every day, but it doesn't mean it's going to shine. If you're going to do something for Canadian people, tell us what you're going to do. None of these parties have really said what they're going to do. They slided around like playing hockey. Well, I think that
Deb, I want to throw. Hang on, John. I want to throw over to Deb. Deb, you interview all these politicians. John, hang on a second. Deb, you interview all these politicians. You hear them talk often. You can't often be. You interview them. Have you seen the substance that you think is important for Canadians? Have you seen that in what they're saying to us?
What a question, Garth.
Thanks. Late at night, I threw one
why
at you,
you
kid.
asked it, right?
Sorry, kid.
Yeah.
Hey, Deb, you're good. Don't worry about it.
I think what I see from the politicians that I am lucky enough to be able to interview, Garth, is that they all believe in their own way that they are doing what they can to help this country.
Okay.
And that what they are working towards is what this country needs.
Okay. That's a good comment.
You know, and I see a lot of good people here in Durham region elected, and a lot of good people who ran in this election, who were all very passionate about what they felt they had to offer this country and what direction this country should take.
Well,
can that be like sitting on the fence enough for you?
No, I think it was good actually.
Because my opinion doesn't matter.
I know as an interviewer, we don't get the opportunity to often, but here on this platform, I sort of centered you out. Totally, I guess, but I think
Don't do that, or they'll never come on Talk Politics again.
Yeah, that's true. Listen, John, before we let you go, any last words there, Mr. Dolstra?
Well, you know, Garth, I'm not surprised. The only thing I'm surprised is I thought the Green Party would pull more seats. But you look at the numbers, you see they pulled a lot more votes in this election than they did the last one.
Yeah.
And I don't know who it hurt, whether it hurt the Conservatives or whether it hurt the Liberals. I don't know. I'm going to have to look it all over once this is all said and done. Mm-hmm. But I give us 2 years, maybe a little less or more.
To the next election.
I think we'll be back at the polls.
All right.
These leaders are going to have to understand something. We have a different type of people now in Canada of all sorts. You're not going to appease everybody. But if you're going to do something for the people of Canada, you better start going back to the drawing book and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. I don't see anything here. I don't see anything by either party and what they're going to do.
Well, it's been, John, I'm going to let you go, but I think what we all agree on and what you've said is this whole party, all of the platforms have been promises that can't be kept and really no vision and no business case. John Dolstra, thanks for being a part of the show. We appreciate it.
Hey, Garth.
Thanks, man. And I'm going to throw it back over to Deb and to Dawn.
Okay. Thanks so much, Garth. It's just Dawn and I over here. We lost some peeps because they had some places to go. Our thanks to Pat Perkins and to Renee Soutens, who spent the majority of the evening here.
And I really like the way the camera people the seats have just disappeared. It's just you and I now.
I know, right?
That's just the magic of television.
Now we are waiting for Ryan Turnbull's speech. There is a live shot at the Tap and Tankard in downtown Whitby. That's where Ryan Turnbull's victory party is going to be, and our camera is there waiting for Ryan to arrive.
And that was Liberal territory before, right? Because that was Selina
Caesar Chavez.
Right.
And there was a lot of speculation when Selina had that very public falling out with the Prime Minister of, whether Whitby residents would continue to put their faith in Justin Trudeau.
Mm-hmm. And it's happened.
It has happened.
We are sitting at 159 elected or leading. There's only one seat to come, and the Bloc is sitting at 34. The Greens are 3. So the Bloc, it looks like they pulled seats away from the Liberals. And what's interesting is if they had not done that, we would have been into another majority Liberal government, which is kind of mind-blowing because it's the Liberal seat count is far higher than I thought it would be. Far higher. I thought maybe they'd be looking at 3 or 4 seats more than the Conservatives, but certainly not, almost 40. So that makes a huge difference.
It's funny. Renee was mentioning the bellwether riding of Peterborough-Kawartha, how, whoever they tend to elect forms a government right now. Their Liberal incumbent, Mariam Monsef, is leading with 38% of the vote. However, the Conservative is not that far behind Michael Skinner with 35% of the vote. So that's a lot closer than it is nationally.
It is, and Peterborough's lost some industry. General Electric is closed up there, and everywhere seems to be bleeding industry of machine building of any kind. Oshawa with cars. And
now
whatnot,
I think Northumberland, Peterborough South. That's pretty interesting. Philip Lawrence, the Conservative, taking that from Liberal Kim Rudd. So it's West Durham stayed red. East Durham is blue.
But that may very well be a farming community up there as well. When you get into Peterborough South and that, there are a lot of farms up there, and my own personal experience shows that people that are into the farming, they're hardworking, ground folk, they're all conservatives like that. Same up our way with Jamie Schmale. I'm sure he got back in. I mean, there was hardly another sign anywhere up our way in Halliburton, so it's interesting to watch. Well, I'm shocked that it's there's that many Liberal seats. I really am.
So here's a question for both you gentlemen then.
What's that?
I am going to ask you both, how much faith do you put in opinion polls? Because nobody predicted that, I'm going to go provincially now, that Doug Ford was going to blow everybody out of the water provincially. This time federally, we were expecting a really tight race. And if, as you said, Don, if it wasn't for the Bloc Québécois, the Liberals and Justin Trudeau would have their majority again. So how much faith do you guys all put in opinion polls?
It's not a business that I would buy.
I'd like
or they're making a lot of money and don't have to be right.
Well, it's a lot like the weatherman. But here's a weather person. But here's what I think is we don't have enough data. We don't understand. Like today as people, we understand data like never before. We can crunch data, and I don't know where they're pulling these numbers from. So I'm asking, what's their source? What was the question? How did they ask the question? How much word tracking did they use? I mean, so do I understand? Do I believe in opinion polls? I believe we can do what's called an opinionaire, which is a beautiful segue to a gentleman that'll be joining us in a minute on the show by a phone. But it all comes down to how the words. I want to see the questions that they ask, because that's how we could tell.
Well, because you can always skew the question to get the answer that you want. Have you ever seen this show called Yes, Prime Minister?
No.
Oh, you've got to watch it. And it comes out of Britain.
All right.
It's just brilliant. And there's one whole episode on opinion polls.
Right.
And how you can change the outcome by the way you ask the question or the the order.
Right. I mean,
you ask the question.
The way to ask a question is fundamentally will help you gather the data you need to be able to help steer a conversation. And it's a science. It's an absolute science on how to do it. One of our callers, as soon as we have him online, is a guy by the name of Jonathan Weaver, who's been
and he's waiting for you now.
Is he waiting for us right now?
He's waiting for you now.
So I got Weaver. Mr. Weaver's on the line, been a guest, been a friend of mine for about 18 years, and also been a guest, and always talks about having a business conversation. Jonathan, before we got you here right now, Deb Hutchison, our news anchor, was saying, do we believe in opinion polls? And I was saying that when the questions are properly tracked and put together, you can sometimes get some substance. But I'd like to maybe introduce you as an expert on this field. Do you believe in opinion polls?
Well, I think you hit it on the head when you talked about what kind of data do we have? Like, what are the demographics of the people they're speaking to?
Right.
What area of the country are they in? What socioeconomic status do they have? And, as you rightfully suggested in an opinionaire, and she said quite accurately on Yes, Prime Minister, how you ask the question can dictate how people respond.
Now, you were talking, you were asking, because you and I have had long chats about our country, whether we believe in it or believe what can be done. And what does the economy need? And what do you think the economy needs in order for us to right this spending addiction that we have?
Well, we need jobs. I mean, I grew up in Northern Ontario. Northern Ontario is dying. It's been dying ever since we stopped harvesting trees at the rate we used to. And that's where, ironically, that's where affordable housing is. But we need sustainable jobs. You know, I guess I mean, my take on this is, what do we really need? I think we need some healing. I mean, I look at the gains made tonight. You know, some will argue that, hey, we're really not that divided. The Liberals only lost 18 seats, but it occurs to me that we're more divided in that 46 seats were gained by the official opposition and a party that wants to leave the country. So, we're more divided than we've ever been because, frankly, if I look at this election, it wasn't of who people voted for as much as, man, the options available to you weren't even close.
How do you mean by that? What do you mean? I'm going to ask also Don and Deb to jump in here. Weaver's saying that there was not much of a selection out there, that there wasn't much to vote for. What are your guys' take on it?
I think that's what our panelists said as well. Did they not? They're really...
Yeah, it was hard to make a decision. There wasn't any real information. I always look for what's your platform. That's very hard. If you go to any of the websites, it's very hard to find out what the platform is.
Right.
Like, what are the 3 things that are your priorities? It's also murky now, as in the what I call political speak, that it's almost impossible to decipher what they're trying to say. It's like it's in a different language, right, and then try and take that to the bank and vote on that. To me, it's getting worse. We need real clarity in what these people are doing, and it seems to be going the other way.
So how do we continue to tolerate this? How do we continue to tolerate the fact that we can have people get up there and not say anything, and not be able to deliver anything? That's what I think leaves us feeling hopeless.
Well, I think what you have to do is tell your local candidate, like pepper them with questions and say, what are you really saying? And then what you have to do is you have to sift out what they believe and what the leadership believes, because that's been an issue that I've found over the last 10 years, is that you have somebody that's local that is tuned in to the local needs of the community, but they have to kowtow to their leader.
Weaver, what do you got to say about that?
Well, I think local politics is certainly an issue if you look at the gains made by the Bloc tonight, right? I mean, clearly local politics, they were talking about C21. It was, and clearly the Quebecers want, to look after Quebec first and nation second. If I look at fundamentally, your panelists just hit it on the head from the standpoint of, okay, what was the Liberal platform other than spending $98 billion on question mark over the next 4 years? If you look at the Conservatives, it was even more vague. What's interesting is I looked at the whole campaign as very American-style politics. Let's listen to the leaders, except in this country we don't vote for leaders. We vote for a party, and it's amazing to me that we allow, we allow television to have the Bloc and the PPC participate in a national debate when in fact they now represent 0 seats. So can we get to the point where we actually force people to talk about issues and have fact checkers, halt rhetoric and stick to facts?
Wouldn't that be interesting if we had the fact checkers, Deb? I mean, part of they say that journalism has gone by the wayside, and when we go to actually do the fact checking, is there any appetite for it, do you think? And you've been in the news business now for a few years. I don't want to say how many, Deb, but you've been around from the time where journalism...
I've been around a long time,
Yeah, you have.
Garth.
So do you think there's an appetite for this? Or, because right now we've got it all chopped down for journalists to not necessarily have the time to dig and fact check. And I know you're one of those people that loves to fact check when given the opportunity. Is there an
There's
appetite?
not the people around. There's not enough people to do it. And that's what it comes down to.
In our business anymore.
In our business. I'm not saying here.
Right.
But overall.
Right.
There's not enough people left to do it, Garth.
Right.
And when you're talking about TV news, whole stories have to be a minute 20.
Right.
What can you explain in a minute 20?
Right. So this idea of fact checking, nobody really uses this as a tool to spur accountability.
Yeah, but Garth, I think individuals need to take that responsibility on as well.
True. I know we're going to wrap. Jonathan, I want to thank you for being a part of the show. I just got a signal from producers that we got to move on to something else, but we'll get you back in the next election in a year and a half. What's that?
No worries. Delighted you included me.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for being a part of it. Over to you, Deb.
Okay, thanks so much. We're going to go back to Brittany Christopoulos in Whitby, who is standing by at the Ryan Turnbull campaign with Whitby Councillor Rhonda Mulcahy.
Thanks, Deb. I'm here with Deputy Mayor of Whitby, Rhonda Mulcahy, as we're waiting for Ryan to still show up. So, Rhonda, what does this mean for the town of Whitby?
Well, as a municipality, we deal with the lowest level of municipal government, so, we have a lot of work to do, and we're looking forward to getting back to work with the federal government. Lots of needs, lots of asks, and we're happy that Ryan's going to be in position to help us with that.
Now, do you feel because of the scandal earlier this year with Parliament and Whitby's name being thrown into the mix, do you feel that might have tarnished the reputation that we have on Parliament Hill?
Whatever happened, I can say honestly that Ryan ran a very clean campaign, which in Whitby seems to be a very favorable thing.
Excellent. And also this election, it's been a lot talked about how the young people, in other words, millennials, those born between 1985 and 1997, really had the power and a majority to have their say in the vote. Do you think that helped Ryan in his case?
Absolutely. I think we saw a lot of polling in the last week that showed that the Conservatives were ahead. I think that's indicative to home telephones, and I don't think our millennials have them anymore. So I think that we're seeing truthfully what's actually happening.
Excellent, excellent. And one last thing, looking forward, what do you think some of the major changes that you're hoping to see that will come true?
Well, I think we've had a large conversation surrounded by climate change, and I know that we've had some provincial cuts to some of our multi-use paths and some of our active transportation funding. So I'm really hoping that we see more surrounding that, maybe some of our infrastructure around some of our building of actual buildings, waste management. These are things that we can use help with from the federal government. They're the three major polluters, along with transportation, electrifying our buses, that sort of thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'll let you go and enjoy your night of celebration. We'll be back to you in the studio, hopefully when Ryan comes shortly.
Okay, there you have it. In Whitby, they have elected a Liberal MP, Ryan Turnbull.
So the Liberals carry on.
The Liberals carry on. Mm-hmm. As you said, all West Durham is red.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then
Eastern
from Oshawa on, it is blue.
And we're still waiting on the one riding up north Peterborough way. Is that correct?
No, we're good.
No, we're good?
No,
okay.
we're good.
Right, we're good? Okay.
We're good.
Don't add any more, Don.
Don't add any more ridings to Durham Region, Don.
Well, I'm glad,
No.
I'm interested to see that Colin Carey got back in, because I wondered whether or not with the loss of General Motors, whether or not he'd taken on the channel a little bit about that. But it looks like he still has a strong following.
I think when that news came down and everybody was so shocked. I mean, Colin showed up to talk to workers. Mm-hmm. Andrew Scheer came into town to talk to workers. But when you talk to the workers, they were angry at everyone. At everyone, at every level of government.
Sadly, it's been coming for some time, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I worked in General Motors at one point in time for 2
Did you
years.
really?
When I first came to Oshawa, I worked there 2 years and I
You
have.
kept this from me.
I.
How long have I known
did.
you?
Well, I don't know. I go back to black and white TV. You don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. But I remember, there was, I think, 32,000 people working for General Motors direct, and then they started to sub it out, and then, over the years, the trend line has been down to zero, and we're there now. So, and whether or not it'll come back or they'll sell the facility, I don't know. But I wondered really just how that would hurt him, and apparently not. So good on him for getting back in. And I haven't seen my results for my own guy, Jamie Schmale up there, but I would imagine he got in as well because he's...
Well, let me Google and I'll find it for you.
You want to do that?
I
That would
can
be
do that
awesome
for you.
you.
Our producer, Judy Kalo, just sending in this interesting tidbit of information. Ralph Goodale went down to his Conservative challenger.
Really? That's
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Time to retire, Ralph.
And Mark Holland was Goodale's parliamentary assistant. There you go.
How about that?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Hard to know. Okay, that's kind of curious.
Yeah, I want to know what the new cabinet is going to look like.
Yeah, I do too.
And whether we'll have some local representation.
Yeah,
What do you think?
You know what? I give it a couple of years, this government. Honestly, I can't see it working. And I think there's a lot of people that are tired of writing checks to Quebec, so I don't know how that's going to work either.
Well, as Dan McTagg said, it will end up in a constitutional crisis because Alberta and the West will be very angry with how things go under this.
To Justin Trudeau's credit, they did spend a pile of taxpayer dollars to buy the pipeline, and I think that was to shore up whether or not it was actually going to happen or not. Now they have a vested interest in it. I'm pretty sure that the levers will get pulled to make it happen. The trouble they're going to have now is getting it through Quebec because the bloc has been 100% clear, no pipeline happening here. Not unless they put a little gas meter on one side and one on the other, and whatever flows through they get money for. That's how it works.
Well, money.
Well, you know
Money
what?
for them.
Down in Florida last week, and we were talking about a couple of engines a guy put on the back of his boat made by Bombardier Recreational Products. And he said, you know what, I should get a taxpayer discount on that because of all the money we dump. Canadian taxpayer dollars we dump into Bombardier. And I mean, people have got to start looking at that kind of stuff too, and just, okay, if we're really going to start pushing money around, where does it need to go? And I fully support the oil patch right now. I think that the oil patch, the day of oil will come when it's just not the energy to use anymore. But it's not going to stop tomorrow, and it's not probably going to stop in 10 years. I doubt we'll see the end of oil in my lifetime, but we've still got to get that stuff to market. So they've got challenges out west. I'm not sure how the west turned out as far as votes go, but they're trying to get it through British Columbia, and I mean they really don't want it out there. So we'll see what happens. So, Garth, you got anything going on over there?
Well, I was trying to actually look at some statistics, and I was I'm looking through. There's a lot of comments on Twitter. I think that the big question is that it seems to be is people are just wondering how everything's going to be afforded, and the consensus is that this was a lackluster election. But also was reading a little earlier in some comments where people were saying that they were afraid of what was possibly going to happen, that they were afraid that maybe some of these fringe parties would actually take hold, and we don't know enough about it. They were afraid that the millennial vote would, outstrip the baby boomer vote because there was more of them. So it's been very, very interesting to see these conversations that are happening, and I wonder, are they trying to do a better job at getting the millennial vote? I mean, they keep opening up advanced polls in universities and colleges. I mean, I think we're trying to engage that voter. But if they'd only understand the world from their perspective and haven't been around long enough, do you end up electing a government that potentially, would run amok? And a lot of people were afraid that the NDP would do better than they have.
Yeah, I'm surprised how they've done as well. I thought they would have done better. But I think a lot of the young votes have gone to the Liberals, and I think there's a lot more younger people that are actually voting for the Liberals.
Do you think they voted for the Liberals or they voted for the party? They didn't vote for Justin, I don't think. I think, do you think he's the reason they're voting?
Yeah,
for him?
A lot of them look at, the debt they have, like the debt that the young folks come out of with university today and whatnot.
Right.
To me, it's just mind-blowing. So they need some relief on that.
Right.
I knew somebody that was in their early 40s still paying off their university debt.
Right.
So that to me is just insane. And I guess at times I question the value. Is a trade better to go that route than the other? But let me ask you this, Garth. Do you think our Prime Minister should do something like the United States does, where they have a State of the Union message, maybe twice yearly, so we know how we're doing?
I think, yes. I believe just like any business that runs, and I think the government is where it's a business. They are responsible for, and this business has lots of social responsibilities. I don't believe that we've ever heard a leader say something and deliver it in a very long time. And I believe that if a statesman can get up there and make a speech, and it's not Trudeau because they need somebody else that can speak. He's not the speaker. That if they actually could get somebody to speak, a good orator, that would then rally the Canadians to a vision, to a goal. And if we could actually do that, I believe a State of the Union speech would be welcome. But I don't believe we have any leaders of such substance. And I think actually Jagmeer has some of that. But his politics of pledging to not get along with another party is ridiculous. So going back to it, I think, Don, we don't have a statesman out there. I don't believe we have a person that says to the troops, which is the Canadians, we're going here and follow, and we have a definite plan, and then deliver on it. I've yet to see it.
Okay.
That was a long story.
Oh, but a good one, Garth.
Thanks.
Good one.
Sorry.
We are still awaiting some acceptance speeches. In particular, Ryan Turnbull. We are waiting for him to arrive at the Tap and Tankard and address his campaign. We are going to go to the numbers for a while we wait for those speeches. Do not go away. Stay with us. As soon as Turnbull has arrived and is speaking with his campaign workers, we'll be there too. Stay with us. Oh my God. Turnbull campaign in Whitby, a victorious Ryan Turnbull, Liberal, elected MP for Whitby riding. Let's give a listen.
We're here now with new MP-elect Ryan Turnbull. Just made it to the building, taking the podium to say a few words. Let's hear what he has to say.
Is that going to pick up my voice? Great. I can't believe we did it. My heart goes out to each and every one of you that helped to support this campaign. You guys made this happen. I know I worked hard and I stepped up and really pulled everything I got out of my gas tank to make this happen. But honestly, you guys were there every step of the way. I had such a phenomenal team and the community rallied around us. And I honestly prepared myself mentally just in case we lost. And I'm so overwhelmed with gratitude to serve this community. It is such an honor and a pleasure to stand before you as your future MP for Whitby. For most of my life, I dreamed of being a great leader. And I've really strived to, make my community a better place in so many different ways. And I just know that the Liberal Party has done that in so many ways. I look at our platform and I found it so inspiring. I read it over and over and over again. And I thought, every time I looked at it, it was like a novel that you can't stop reading, because every time you read it, you find more depth and more meaning and more insight and inspiration. That's what it felt like to me. It's like, wow, we're addressing all of the major problems in our society while we're growing a stronger economy, and we're addressing climate change. We're working on seniors. We're making them a priority. We're helping children. We're alleviating poverty. We're doing the things that government should do. And our community spoke. It spoke to us in this election. It spoke to us. It said, we want to move forward on these issues, right? It didn't say, people did not come to the polls. Sure, at the doors while we were knocking 10, 20,000 doors, I don't know how many we got to, but it was every day, right? Working hard out there, knocking on doors, talking to people. And I really thought at some points there was a lot of people who were undecided right up until the last day. But I think that our hard work and our hope and the vision of an inspiring future, they had a moment right before they went to the poll, and they voted for that vision, that positive vision. Yeah. I think people and communities are wise beyond belief. They are. Of this community, and we're going to a strong, resilient society together. I'm inspired every day to serve you to the best of my very ability, and I will push myself even further. I love and respect each one of you, not just you in this room, because you are the people that I relate to in terms of my values. We, the Liberal, people that believe in the values of the Liberal Party, but I will also strive to serve and bring empathy to everyone in our community. Yeah. Everyone. I want to come around and thank everybody, but I really need to acknowledge a few people. And I really would like to acknowledge every single one of you, but I really think I need to name some people. So first of all, I'd like to really give, a heartfelt thanks to all the volunteers, but especially the core team that formed around this campaign. They worked around the clock, every second of the day. They were there for me. They, for media, interviews, knocking on doors, pulling lists, and sending us out and coordinating all the efforts. They were there for office dance parties at midnight while we're putting things together and getting packages ready. It was just what a roller coaster of an experience. So Unique, I don't know where you are. I can't see you because of the lights, but you stepped up. You are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal woman. Michaela. I have so many people to thank.
Yes.
I really do.
I got new bikes. Yeah, I got new batteries.
Yeah, so I want to thank Tom Wall for manning the office. Every single part of our existence around that office, and you should hear him on the phone. He just won people over left, right, and center. It's fantastic. Craig, the sign chair. Yeah. Really have to say thanks to John Wyatt. John Wyatt helped me from the very beginning through the nomination process. We met, and it was like love at first sight. We got along so well, and honestly, you've been there, John, every single day. You dedicated, like, you worked as hard as I did, I think, you know? And I don't, like, I can't even understand how someone can be that generous with their time. But honestly, like, you were there, you really have become one of my best friends. And I know you've done this in the past. You did it for Selena. You know, you were really a big part of her campaign. And I just want you to know how much I really respect you, and just like, honestly, like, you're one of my best friends. We'll be drinking beer and having ready.
Hey, get on mic back. Got the mic
Judy
back.
Longfield and John Duffy. Judy Longfield is our campaign chair and the official agent for the campaign. She moved desks. I've never seen a woman work as hard as Judy ever in my life. And you put your heart and soul into the campaign, and you provided mentorship and guidance to us. You cut through stuff very quickly when we needed some decisions and someone really experienced to really say, this is how you move forward. And, you know, I really appreciate that. You're sort of my oracle, you know, a place where I can go for advice. And I really just appreciate that mentorship, and you bring so much experience to this work. So thank you so much. I don't know if John Duffy is here. John Duffy, are you here? Maybe not. But you know what? John Duffy is the person that sort of found me. Literally, we were the first, you know, we had the first conversation when I was considering, you know, going for the nomination for Whitby. And he, you know, he laid things out, he boosted my confidence, he told me that I could do this, and he really believed in me, you know, and I really want to thank him for that. And I'm sure I've forgotten some people, but the main people. Oh, I haven't forgotten. Hey, Alan Levine, I'm going to have to talk to you. I was saving the best for last. So the main women in my life are my wife and my little girl. Now let me tell you just briefly about what this family has been through and taken on. My wife has been there every single day. Honestly, she's gone door to door with me. Many people said to her, you should run for election. They did. She is so passionate, and I am so fortunate to have such a beautiful wife that is so, like, smart and intelligent, you know, and really is like she would always joke and say, well, you're getting 2 for 1, because you really do, in this election, you know, you're going to get my wife and I every step of the way. Yeah. And to the apple in my eye, my little girl Alexis, you know, since she was born, I've never experienced the love so deep as one for my little girl. And I hope, you know, she's experienced this campaign. It's been stressful on the family at times, and it's been a lot of work. There's no doubt about it. But I hope, Alexis, what you take away from this is that you can accomplish anything if you put your mind to it. If I've forgotten to thank anybody, my apologies, because I think all of you deserve a special thanks, and I probably have not mentioned every single person in here, like Narelle. Oh, and Landon. Oh my gosh, how could I forget these two people? So Narelle, I want to speak to you first. You were just like a ball of energy, and you were the best. And Landon stepped in and really ran election day. I've never seen someone just take control like that. Like he must have been trained. He must have been trained by Judy Longfield, because those two, man, when you put them together, winning combination. Yeah. And I really appreciate the way, Landon, you brought it home for us. Thank you. Also, our communications manager, Kirk volunteered his time for the last month and a half and, managed our Twitter, social media feeds, and press releases and everything. Way to go, Kirk. I think I could go on and on and on about everybody to thank. Want to thank all of you, and we did it. We really did it together. So thanks.
You're starting this, okay? Ryan?
Wow. So there is a jubilant Ryan Turnbull, the MP-elect for Whitby. Don.
I know.
Pittman.
Yeah. So
I don't think he can believe it either.
Not the way that interview was going.
I know, right?
I'm a little shocked that after the Selena incident there, when she was so fed up with the Liberals that would sort of resonate and roll over the community, and they would say, well, that's the end of that. But obviously that's not the case. No. It's extraordinary. Really. I mean, this has surprised me in a couple of areas. That's one. The second is that the Liberals got as many seats as they did. Mm-hmm. I just didn't think that they would be even close to that. So there's an awful lot of people out there that are willing to forgive and forget, I guess. Mm-hmm. Give him a second round. See what happens.
Well, let's see what he does with that second round.
Well, that'll be interesting to see. I just hope it isn't, slash and burn, spend.
Okay, we are going to go back to Brittany Christopoulos, who is standing by with Whitby MP-elect Ryan Turnbull. Brittany.
I'm here now with the new MP-elect, Ryan Turnbull. Congratulations on your win. What's going through your mind right now?
Well, it's just surreal. I actually prepared myself for the potential loss. And, all I could think was if you work as hard as you possibly can to win this election, that hope and hard work would pay off. And it has. We came through in the end and beat the Conservatives. That was our main opponent in this riding. And, I think we proved to everybody that Whitby really wants a strong voice in Ottawa, and they want the Liberal Party to represent them.
Is this the outcome we were expecting? In the beginning, we thought it was a pretty tight race with Conservative causes in Whitby. What do you think of that?
This is what I was hoping for, of course. I think everybody that runs in an election is working hard to, achieve this kind of result and actually win and become the MP. So, it was what I was hoping for, but I didn't take it for granted, not for 1 second.
Really emotional here with your wife, very emotional, hugging, kissing. What does this mean, not just to you, but to your entire family?
Well, for me, this means, I've worked my whole life towards making a bigger impact in our society and our community, and so this is a great fulfillment of that. I get to actually create policy on a national level and advocate for the people of Whitby, and I'm inspired by that. I'm honored by it, and for us in our family, I think this is really a new chapter in our lives.
Yeah. What do people of Whitby expect when you get to Parliament Hill?
Well, they can expect I'll work really hard and bring their voices to Ottawa I think, one thing about knocking on doors as much as I have is that you really get a good sense of what people think, what their perspectives are, what issues are most important to them. And to me, I want to bring those issues into Ottawa with me, right? And really be able to speak intelligently with their voices, because I've sort of absorbed those,
What's your first priority upon getting into office? What do you plan to tackle first?
Well, I think we need a stronger local economy, and we need to take care of our seniors better, and we need to build an economy that's a green economy. So I want to champion innovations in climate action while building a strong local economy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there you have it. That is Ryan Turnbull, Whitby's MP-elect. A very, very happy man tonight. We are awaiting on an interview with Aaron O'Toole, the MP-elect for Durham riding. And while we wait for that interview, we're going to take you now to the numbers. Don't go away. Okay, we are taking you now to an interview with Aaron O'Toole. Corey Manuel has an interview with Aaron, who is the MP-elect for Durham riding, being returned once again to Parliament Hill.
Thanks, Deb. I'm here at the Deck Bar and Grill here in Bowmanville, where newly re-elected candidate and now incumbent Aaron O'Toole is here with us. Thank you so much, Aaron, and congratulations.
Thank you. It's an amazing night. I'm here to thank my amazing team in Durham. We set records.
Too early.
Talking to more people, knocking on more doors, visiting more places than ever before. And tonight, to get a mandate from my home communities means a lot to me, so I'm truly humbled.
So what challenges do you have ahead of you as you enter another 4 years of being the incumbent for Durham?
Well, I'm always worried about our economic future. The Trudeau government kind of waltzed into small business tax changes that have hurt Durham, trade negotiations and tariffs that hurt Durham and indirectly led to the departure of GM. They don't support clean energy from nuclear power. I do. So I'm going to fight for those jobs. Uncertainty for our farms through trade disruptions caused by Mr. Trudeau.